Okay, today at Ediction we are here with David Mullings, who runs a company called Father Figure, which deals with young dads. Hi David,
Hi.
How are you today?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good. It is good to have you here because often people don't really talk about dads and their kids, let alone young dads and their kids. And obviously you're quite the expert in that area. Were you a young dad yourself?
Was a young dad, definitely. I had my first child at the age of 18 and my second child by the age of 19.
So what was it like being a young dad?
It was quite daunting. For me, it made me a lot more responsible, and I do understand that that's not necessarily the case for many fathers, but for me it did that. It gave me a sense of thinking more about the future and less about here and now. So, yeah.
What were some things that you wish you knew when you were a young dad that you know now?
I don't think we got enough time. Things I wish I knew as a young dad. I wish I knew more about how to select a partner and a prospective mother of a child. I wish I knew more about protection. I wish I knew more about love and relationships and what actually that means to love someone. I wish I knew more about what being a father entailed, being a parent, what came with that, what that meant. And I wish I probably listened a little bit more to my parents, although I do also kind of reflect that maybe my parents weren't able to communicate with me in the most effective way. And I probably put that down to them being from another culture, me being born and brought up here. My parents were both born in Jamaica, and I guess things were probably different for them. So they could only give me what really was handed down to them.
So knowing what you know now, what advice do you give to young dads?
Oh, kind of the advice, the things I wish I knew. So firstly thinking about how you're going to protect yourself when having sex. Planning, you know, children I think should be planned, and too often they're not planned. Most of the fathers I come up against or communicate with, they haven't planned. So just about planning, what's involved in that. Selecting prospective mothers for children. What does that look like? So if I talk to young people as if they were my own children, and I talk to my children in a way that, well, you should get to know that person and their family explicitly before you even think about getting to a situation where you could potentially have a child. Because knowing their family means you're going to know them a bit more. You're going to know who your partner or the mother of your child is going to be in a moment of conflict. And when the chips are down, when things are not going great, how are they going to behave, how are they going to react? And a lot of that is going to come from how they were taught, what was given to them. So just around really getting to know that person first, understanding what the role entails when you become a father. It isn't just about maybe providing monetary, physical things. There's a lot more. I think if I think back to my father's role, I think that role has changed. My father's role was for his time, not just him specifically, wasn't about him being a provider and probably a protector, and less more about being a nurturer. And I think that fathers now need to understand that they're not just there to provide.
Yeah, they're not the stereotype.
No, they need to be able to nurture their children and build up their self-esteem.
Do you have any final, like a key word of wisdom for young dads out there?
Young dads, I would say to young dads that you should, echoing what I've said before, really think about your future. Think about what's going to happen going forward in terms of relationships. Understand that whatever happens with a relationship, that the connection you have to your child is and should be unbreakable. It doesn't matter what happens to your relationship, because relationships may come and go and may break down, but actually you'll always be the father for that child, and you should be as such, you should always remain the father for that child, and that does not just involve buying new trainers, making sure your child's clothed. And I guess another thing which is really important for young dads is like, because a lot of the young men I come into contact with are willing to take risks with their freedom in the name of providing for their child. And so words of wisdom would be that your presence is more important than any present that you could ever buy. You're much more important and worth much more to your child being there, as opposed to being able to buy something. I think if you couldn't buy your child a pair of trainers, a pair of shoes, because you was unemployed, because you wasn't hustling, then that's fine. As long as you're there to pick him or her up from school, to read a book with him or her, to help him do some subtractions and addition in their maths, that is more important than anything. Especially in a country like this. Money versus time, I think time wins it every time.
Those are some very good words of wisdom. So that was Ediction with David Mullings.